shows how degenerate the world is becoming. And pornography as a whole is simply just, I think it's an effect. I think it's a tool which is used to ensure that the male populace stays as docile as possible. I don't think that any of the things that are happening to the male population are accidental. I think that keeping us as docile as possible is very interesting for the people who are in charge of the world, because we're the warrior class. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to the men who are going to stand up and actually do something about anything at some point in time. So I think they like the idea of us being docile. And I mean, how much more docile can you get than a man sitting there looking at a screen, not even want to reproduce for real because he's just staring at a screen? And I think that's just the next stage in the slave mind.
And it's everywhere now. Whereas, and this is something that my husband says, he doesn't have any social media because he's like, Instagram is pornography. I open my Instagram and I've got Emily Ratajkowski's butt cheeks.
Yeah.
And I'm not a man, so I don't have that same biological reaction to seeing it. But I can only imagine how difficult it is for a man when you open an app and you've got Kim Kardashian offering her body to Emily Ratajkowski. Even if you're walking down the street, I've realized even how desensitized I've become to pornography, because you see an ad for Gucci and for whatever reason, she's got to be completely naked while she's holding the bag.
Our biological imperative, our very proclivity to procreate as a man is being monopolized. It's being weaponized. We are being turned into these very subservient, and Andrew got it right there. Docile is the word you would use. Docile, submissive, compliant, sheep, followers in respects to the powers that be. I mean, he is of course going to quote the aforementioned Matrix again, I'm sure, but I have a real problem with this. I have a real problem with this in the sense that, look, we all know Andrew's rise to fame is not something that is particularly moral, right? He has been on record many times, and look, I think Andrew Tate says some good things, and I think he says some terrible things, and I think he's done some abhorrent things. If you look at the culture of how he established his particular name, it is all built upon the bones of men. It is all built upon the proclivity of men to procreate. He has his, or had, I mean, I don't know if he has at the moment, his webcam business. And I know a lot of you would tell me that, he's changed in modern times, but the only reason that he's got the platform that he does now is because once upon a time, he saw you guys as not just, customers is the wrong word, is someone that they could manipulate. I mean, think about that. This is a hero for many young men. And like I said before, I don't believe the world is black and white in the sense that he's an abhorrent person or he's a tremendously good person. But to believe that he is this anchor for masculinity in the modern Western world is an absolutely incorrect statement, because as I've said before, his platform, him being able to speak to you and reach into your minds and hearts, is built upon manipulating you in the past by creating industries that fundamentally weaken men. And it's not just pornography, but it's also casinos, gambling. Do you think gambling has done anything beneficial for men, really, truly? Do you think any of these industries have done anything beneficial for men, really, truly? The answer is no. But people were very quick to skirt over that real reality of how he built wealth. There's some very famous clips of him saying that he had men selling their houses, selling their cars, selling the very roof over their head in order to fill his particular bottom line. I fundamentally agree with what he's saying here, but I have a real trouble, a real irk in listening to this individual long term because of the hypocrisy. Because it just doesn't sit well with my soul to do things in a way which is completely abhorrent and immoral for a long period of your life, to a point where you have the riches and, blood money, you can call that blood money. I'm sure men have ruined, maybe not passed away, but in the sense that they've ruined their lives as a consequence of the industries that have been built by this individual and perpetuated by this individual, which is gambling. So which is lust, and pride. All of these things, which are, of course, denominations of the 7 deadly sins. But now, turning a new leaf, and if Andrew was really consistent with this kind of masculine ideal that he has been speaking about, then he would give away all of the money that he accumulated as a consequence of the manipulation of men, he would return that money and perhaps pay interest on that money to the individuals that he manipulated and stole it from.
I remember in my lifetime, there were music videos that got censored or banned or can only be played after 10 or 11 at night. And if you watch them now, you'd be like, what? For what? What is that? A bikini? Like, it's nothing. It's amazing how quickly it has degenerated. And yeah, absolutely.
And we're all degenerating with it. Like I've realized the fact that I don't have a reaction to seeing the half-naked woman holding a Gucci bag means that I have been desensitized to pornography. And I can only imagine what that does to men.
Oh, completely. And but this is what the powers that be want. They want to make sure that the male populace is as docile as possible. And they do that with a large array of weapons. And they do that with a web of tools. And I believe that I'm the counter to that, which is the reason I ended up attacked in the first place. But unfortunately, when you buy into the slave mind programming, you do not become the kind of man who can easily attract a woman because you're not attractive to females as a whole.
Interesting. He believes he's the counter to this particular agenda. You perpetuated it. You promoted it. You installed it further in the culture. You made its presence larger. You funneled and fueled it into the minds of men who are vulnerable, and you had no problem taking from them in that respect. And it's very interesting to me that there's little repentance, there's little consideration for that particular reality. Now, I didn't want this video to turn into me highlighting the hypocrisy of Andrew Tate, which I don't believe people do, because they're scared of the recourse, because I'm sure many of you are supporters of this individual and find value in what he's saying. And fundamentally, I'm not saying that you can't find value in it. I'm just saying be careful of who you idolize, because it's very easy to pull the wool over your own eyes and blind yourself from the truth that this individual only is available to you because he doesn't really care. He only really cares about magnifying his ego and his pride, and that couldn't be more obvious in the way that he markets himself, which is through, fast cars, through Bugattis, through all of these things. But he is right in this video. What he's talking about is 100% correct. I agree with him wholeheartedly. I agree with Candace Owens wholeheartedly that the promotion of adult and illicit material in this culture runs like toxic sludge through the streets, through your phones, through the websites, through the TV even. And it's very interesting to denote there that I also remember a time where, you couldn't even watch MTV, or there was a pin or some kind of firewall against some of the music videos that were promoted on, MTV. I think I remember, Christina Aguilera or some of these other hip hop or R&B artists where they would film music videos that were highly sexually suggestive, and you couldn't get access to them. But nowadays, you can access stuff that is far more stimulating from the convenience of your pocket, from Instagram, from TikTok. It's all soft adult material, and it is absolutely poisoning the neurochemistry of the average man. I believe lust is the final enemy that a man has to defeat. And even, that word lust, desire, I believe is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get the thing that you want. And that is a particular quotation from Naval Ravikant. And I would not have you spend 1 second in that particular emotion. But the powers that be, the matrix, to use Andrew's very famous term, wants you docile, wants you compliant, wants you to follow and be submissive. And they would do that by constantly putting you in a state of not having. Because if you're in a state of incompleteness, then you can't recognize your divinity. You can't recognize your righteousness. You can't recognize your generativity, and that things aren't so bad. And you can actually have the will and the power and potency within you to leverage that to change your life circumstances, to perhaps be somewhat of a philanthropist in your local community, to give back, to make your society and your reality consistent with what you want, because you already have it. You're channeling a state of wholeness within you. But everything around you is telling you that you're lacking, that you have to have this, that you must desire this, that you must lust after this. It is inconsistent and incongruent with the divinity that's held within you. And if Andrew were more consistent, more honest about, his new, I suppose, venture into religion, Islam, they absolutely abhor, where they have no affinity for that kind of lustrous, desirous, and culture that promotes the kinds of things that he's been promoting. And I can only hope that he perhaps places his resources towards fighting this more fervently, in the same manner that he he promoted it to give himself the platform that he has now. So I guess this is, me being very, very, I suppose, politically correct, me taking the middle ground, sitting on the fence, and that I value what Andrew is saying here. Yes, I think it's absolutely correct, and I would have you listen to this message and take it home, and certainly be at peace with it. Well, not peace with it, but install it as a mental model in your mind that to indulge the desire is to affirm a state of incompleteness. But at the same time, I can't trust an individual that says one thing and does another. It is the doing. It is the doing that matters. And those aren't theories. Those are facts. Speak soon.